Hello everyone, my name is Daniel and I'm going to talk about our experience with integrating of Zabbix and using the Zabbix API. So first, let me introduce myself. I came here with my colleagues from Bratislava, Slovakia, and I am a long-time sysadmin, mostly working with Linux and Unix-like systems. I also love Python. I like Django, I like Celery, and all the cool modules out there. And I also like the community. That's why probably I helped with organizing meetups, Python meetups, and also the PyCon-SK conferences, which is a bit different conference like this. We had this year the second year, and it grew quite big. We had more than 500 attendees and 50 speakers. So yeah, it's a different experience to the usual IT stuff I do. And I'm working as CTO at Danube Cloud. Now, in order to explain our work regarding the Zabbix API and the integration of Zabbix, I have to first tell you something about Danube Cloud. So Danube Cloud is a software for creating and managing cloud data centers, and it's basically based on virtualization. It's an open source project. The code is licensed under the Apache license. We open source mostly all of our code, also the code for building images, and also the documentation, almost everything. And it's mostly written in Python and based on Django and Celery. Yeah, as I said, I was working as a sysadmin for 15 years, and like 5 years ago, I noticed that the work of a sysadmin is kind of hard. There are lots of responsibilities. You know, you have to take care of servers, virtual, physical, take care of lots of software, databases, services, security, write documentation, and it's a lot of things a sysadmin has to do, and the work tends to be kind of repetitive. So sometimes, or maybe all the time, you do the same tasks over and over again, and that's one motivation why we created Danube Cloud. We wanted to eliminate this kind of work, and we also wanted to restore focus on customers and services, so a sysadmin can focus more on this stuff than to do repetitive work. And yeah, Danube Cloud is based on Smartus, which is an Illumos distribution, Illumos being an open Solaris fork. And yeah, it has really cool features. For example, it has ZFS, it has KVM, which was made by Join, a company which was mentioned in the first talk, and it has also zones, which are containers but more mature, and it has dtrace and crossbow and lots of cool features. And what we did around the Smartus system, which we use as a hypervisor, we added a lot of automation, and we added a DNS server, an image server, so everything gets automated, and we also added and integrated Zabbix into it. And yeah, let me show you how it works. Okay. A bit bigger. Okay. So let's create a virtual machine. This is the Danube Cloud management system. And yeah, I'm actually using the Python virtual data center, which is used by the community around Python. So yeah, I will create a virtual machine, call it demo1. And let's do a Linux VM, advanced CPU, 1 gig of RAM. And yeah, let's start with the basic integration of Zabbix. Just here you can see we integrate templates and also host groups. And I know that I'm going to deploy a CentOS virtual machine. Yeah. And let's add quickly a virtual network card and an image. Let's see the latest CentOS 7.4, and let's deploy the machine. Yeah, behind the scenes, the Danube Cloud will talk to the physical server, which we call compute nodes, and import the image and create the server. And also, it will talk to Zabbix via the API. And let's see one more integration feature. You can probably see the SLA here, which is pulled from Zabbix from the IT services feature there. And yeah, it's an SLA for the actual compute node which was chosen. But let's see what we have in Zabbix. I hope you can enlarge it. Yeah. So we have two hosts created in Zabbix. There is this host with the underscore, which is the host used for monitoring of the virtual machine from the outside, from the hypervisor point of view. And yeah, you can see there are probably already some data. Yeah, we got data. We got also graphs, and we also pulled the graphs into the no data here, but yeah. This is also based on low-level discovery, so it takes a little bit of time. But from the kernel of the smartest hypervisor, we are pulling some stats. So yeah, you can see those graphs also here. And we also have another host, which is the host used for monitoring from the inside with a Zabbix agent inside the machine. And let's check the templates here. And you can see I got already the CentOS template there. Let's try another thing. Yeah. Let's say I have installed Apache onto this host, and I will add a tag called Apache and just update it. So this is disabled by default, but I have enabled it in this virtual data center, and in the background it checked for templates with the name Apache in it, and attach the template to it. So, and essentially, this is some sort of automation. You can do this same with host groups, but what you would usually do if you would want to automate it more, we have this all nice settings centered around Zabbix in the system, and you can actually do things like automatically get templates. When you have a Linux VM, you get Linux-like templates. So when you have a Windows VM, you will automatically get the Windows templates. And you can create the rules for your complex scenarios via this nice settings. And you can see my Jabberboard is like telling me that I don't have an Apache there. So yeah, it's the Jabberboard that was mentioned before. So yeah, let's go back to the demo. Sure. Okay, so if you do something like this, you will use the Zabbix API, and let's talk about the Zabbix API from my perspective as a developer. If you can clearly see the historical development in the API inside Zabbix. The one thing that is, well, the API is not versioned, so you should check changelogs if you upgrade your server. Also, the API is based on the database model behind it, and you can clearly get some insights into the database. And my advice here is that, and this is probably true for anything, you should only select columns and rows that you're actually going to use. And also the API methods have this, I would say, feature that you can do joins for various tables, so you always should check the documentation for any API method. It uses JSON RPC. This is just a fact, and yeah, it's not restless, or yeah, you are going to use a library anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. What's really great about the API, it has really good documentation, and far more important, it has examples. And I have to say that examples are actually awesome. You should create examples for your API, and because they enable developers to visualize the output when they do their code, and they can run the code faster, or write the code faster. And yeah, it's used by the Zabbix frontend, and this may seem not that important, but I think around 1.9, 2.0, the frontend started to use the API more and more. And let me give you an example. This is the Jabberbot code that we saw earlier, and yeah, I wanted to create an view displaying alerts, and I have the view in mind, and I couldn't program it. I wanted to have these acknowledgements for each event, and yeah, it didn't work. So what I did, I opened up the dashboard.php file, took the PHP code, literally copy-pasted into my Python code, changed the bits and pieces to Python, and it worked. So this was just awesome. You can see that it is a similar code there. You have already in the dashboard this ACK column, and yeah, that's cool. So yeah, if you use the Zabbix API, there are many client libraries. I need to go a little bit faster here for almost every major language, and yeah, there are probably more than 5 Python libraries. We wrote our own. Well, the developer wasn't kind of responding, so we wrote another client library, and we added like a feature to disable TLS verification, because sometimes you do use self-signed certificates, added a relogin feature, and so on. This is kind of obvious, since the Zabbix uses a database, and you call it via an HTTP. You can, and you probably should, use it in a synchronous manner. All the graphs you have seen in Danube Cloud, all the talking to the API is done in a synchronous way. Performance and scalability issues. Sometimes you don't have the money or resources to actually grow your Zabbix server, and we solved this problem in another way, I would say. Inside Danube Cloud, you have these virtual data centers. You can imagine to have it for a project or a customer. And in each virtual data center, you can have your own Zabbix server. And since everything is automated, you can create Zabbix server for every project you have. And it solves, and it scales. It's really cool. It's like using the Zabbix proxy, which Zabbix proxy, I would say, is a lightweight approach to this, and we also support Zabbix proxies. Let's skip these race conditions here. You know that you should avoid them. And let's talk about graphs. These graphs are actually bugs in our code, and Zabbix has this fine feature where you can design your graphs. And after that, I appreciate the feature more and more. You can design your graphs in the Zabbix frontend, but it doesn't have the feature the API doesn't have right now the possibility to pull the rendered images of the graphs. There's a feature request for that, but I can understand that. I can render my graphs, so you pull data. And the one thing you should know the difference between history and trends, and you should know when to use history, when to use trends. Sometimes you want to join the data, so this is an advice. And yeah, we got that a little bit wrong, but yeah, the second bug was a bug we actually shipped in our code, and then it was tested. We had fine graphs. There's a comparison of CPU usage on one physical server, and yeah, there was this bug that we didn't have data, but this bug was only seen when the data we didn't have was in the middle. So you just expect that you don't have data when you do your round graphs. Okay. Overall, I would say the Zabbix API is great. Just use it, and when you use it, you will probably come to this page often, and you should come to this page often and read the documentation. And, well, I'm a developer, and I wrote some APIs, and I would love to hear some feedback on my APIs, especially if someone integrates it. So I have to say to all Zabbix developers, the API is great, it just works. Maybe it doesn't cover 100% of the features, but for us it is great. And to all the other developers and sysadmins and software engineers, just use it. Integrate Zabbix, create nice new software solutions, services, and with that, thank you.
Thank you. Questions, please, from Slido.
Yes, thank you. We will have only one question right now. Do you know about any other software project which are integrated with Zabbix API?
Well, I actually don't know that any project which is so tight integration with Zabbix. One thing we do, I forgot to mention that we ship the Danube Cloud as a USB image. We also have a ready-made Zabbix server there, so people can use it. And I didn't heard about any products which integrate so tightly with Zabbix.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Second row, please.
Hi, thank you. Well, I noticed that you try to use as simple as possible configuring. For example, applying the correct templates in Zabbix so that the user might not even know that it is happening. Did you try to implement the per website discovery or graphing or templating with Apache, for example? Or if you use MySQL basis or some other databases, do you use per database monitoring?
Sure, we monitor everything that can be monitored, and I'm not sure if I understand the question, but you can design the auto configuration of the templates. We have some ready-made templates. There are tons of templates out there, and you can configure the automation around attaching templates to your hosts in a simple yet effective way inside the Danube Cloud. Well,
just interesting about your solution. Did you try to implement the per website? It's not a typical solution.
I see, per website. I think a feature that we are looking into right now is that we are going to implement or integrate web checks, which will kind of be something that will be automatically created if you, for example, let Danube Cloud know that what website is this server around, that it will automatically create web checks. Yeah, that's a feature we are looking into right now.
I'm not talking mostly about the web checks. It's about monitoring, well, maybe web logs or load of the website. It's
well, it's up to you. You can create your own template.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Okay.
There is one question. Yes, please.
Yes, hi. Do you have any idea on how to speed up the response time of the API? Because I've worked with the PHP API, or I connected to it with PHP, and it's really slow in response time and getting data back from the Zabbix server.
Well, it usually depends whether there's a problem, the performance problem in the database or in the web server. There were quite few hints in the previous presentations. What we do, and I said it earlier, that we actually try to scale in a way that we encourage our customers and users to create more Zabbix servers and not to be afraid to have more Zabbix servers because everything is automated. But we use, for example, PG Bouncer. It was already mentioned here for the Postgres database to speed up things a little bit. And we use it in an asynchronous way, which gives you at least the impression, if not performance, that things are done fast in the background.
Okay, but perhaps switching from Apache to Nginx would also help with the performance.
Yep, I agree with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more question from slide, I guess, please.
Okay, thank you. How do you solve the security issues like login names, passwords, and scripts?
I'm not sure whether this question is about how we talk to the API in the background, but if it is, there is a dedicated user which can be configured, and yeah, the user shouldn't have access to front end. And what we are doing right now, and in the next major version of Danube Cloud, it will be probably integrated, is that we are syncing also users from Danube Cloud into Zabbix, and there will be some granularity between permissions. And also we will probably implement actions to be configured from Danube Cloud, and to actually have an alert view to actually manage the alerting of inside Zabbix.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.